President, tomorrow's European Council has a very worthy agenda, and I welcome that for once our leaders are seeking to tackle concrete issues like tax evasion and energy prices, in contrast to the Commission, who are wasting valuable resources on such important and worthy causes as banning reusable olive oil bottles. Rather than tackling a double-dip recession, Mr Barroso seems to be worried about double-dipped bread. So whilst the summit has a worthy agenda, we need to see, of course, some concrete results. On taxation issues, nobody can blame companies for wanting to look after shareholder capital by minimising their tax bill in a legal manner. However, Tax Research UK estimates that EU governments are losing about €1 trillion each year because of tax fraud. And at a time when finances are tight and taxpayers are squeezed, it's only right that, of course, we crack down on those who pursue illegal means to avoid making any contributions to public coffers and who put smaller competitors at a disadvantage. So I welcome David Cameron making this a priority for the UK's G8 presidency. Tackling tax evasion needs a globally coordinated approach to increase transparency and reporting and agree new standards for information exchange. And I hope that leaders tomorrow make more progress than finance ministers made last week. Conversely, of course, Member States could do more to help struggling businesses. Firstly, by making our tax code simpler, and also by making our rates more competitive. Make it simpler for businesses to give money to the government instead of indulging in complicated, difficult, time-consuming processes hiding their money offshore. But we should not confuse cooperation on tax evasion as acceptance that the EU should interfere and harmonise in taxation matters. And it's very frustrating for us that Parliament reports being voted on today blur this line by calling for a more common tax base, which is a prelude to harmonisation. Such matters are the prerogative of national governments, and we should keep our hands off. Because ultimately, if countries such as France want to pursue an ideological drive towards higher taxation, then that should be their choice. All I ask is that in the interests of energy efficiency, maybe the last businessman to leave France will turn the lights off before they go. Which brings me to the other topic of the summit, which is, of course, energy. Because unless we produce a clear energy policy, lights will start to go out across the EU. And let's not underestimate the consequences if we fail to grasp the growing problem of high energy prices. For example, the German BDI predicts that the cost of electricity for German industrial users will be €110 per megawatt hour by 2020. In the US, it is 54, less than half of that total. It's a bit like asking our companies to compete with one hand tied behind their backs. And at the same time, of course, we are condemning people on low incomes to freezing and cold homes. Now, the solution, of course, is not easy, but I believe the first place to start is a thorough trawl through all EU policies, from climate policies such as the ETS, right through to financial services legislation. And if any of those policies have an inadvertent impact on energy prices or they prevent major infrastructure investment, then we should repeal them or we should reform them. Because a single market in energy will only be created with enormous amounts of private sector capital for infrastructure, and that capital is currently not forthcoming. Secondly, I agree with Marcus Beira from Business Europe, who said recently that Europe doesn't have an energy policy, Europe has a climate policy alone. Tomorrow's summit needs to correct this. It needs to have both, and they need to be complementary and not contradictory, which they are at the moment. Because too often our climate policies have pursued arbitrary targets and they've pursued deindustrialisation. This serves only to destroy jobs and to relocate energy-intensive industries to countries with little or no environmental standards. It's neither good for the environment nor good for our economy and for our jobs. And yet, whilst we look to create a stronger energy policy, we must also avoid the EU's tendency towards a one-size-fits-all approach. After all, a solar panel may be a good option for Spain or Greece, but I have to say they're completely useless in the north of England, in my constituency, where the sun shines for about half an hour a year. Instead, we should leave flexibility to allow for what works in each country, whether that be microgeneration, renewables, nuclear or shale gas. The sure way to make the lights go out in Europe would be to follow the advice from Mr Cohn-Bendit and close off all our avenues of energy production apart from wind and solar. Of course, we could probably power a small town from the hot air from Mr Cohn-Bendit in this chamber, but it's not going to make us a proper energy policy. President, you cannot grow an economy with expensive energy. Tomorrow's summit needs to show people that the EU can be about finding solutions to their problems and not just about grand plans for federal union. We look forward for a change to some concrete results. Thank you.